Hey, what's going on, Maschine Masters? My name is MGTheFuture. Thank you guys for joining us on this channel today. Today I'll be using FL Studio 20. I'll be on Mac. And what I want to show you guys is a pretty cool MIDI tool that's built into the FL Studio piano roll. And they call it the Riff Maker. This particular tool I've slept on a ton because it lacked a lot of context for me to have it or use it in a very musical way. It seemed kind of like a random MIDI generator. But since I've been experimenting with it, I figured out a cool way to use it for those of you who may not be using scalar, easy keys, and things like that. And more importantly, for people who purchase construction kits or MIDI loop kits and you have trouble like adding additional parts like melodies and bass lines and things like that, FL Studio is pretty cool with the scale highlighting and ghost channels and lets you trace. But sometimes you may not know how to trace, or you may not want to trace, or sometimes you just need inspiration to strike you a different way. So I'll be showing you some brief features of this particular tool, and it's really easy to use. And shame on me for sleeping on it for so long. So in this particular track, I just have silent here, the regular keyboard sound. I'm gonna right click on that, go to my piano roll. And in my piano roll here, at the top in the toolbar, there's a little tool there, looks like a wrench. And you wanna go to something called Riff Machine, or Alt-E for the shortcut. When you bring this particular tool up, I'm gonna hit the spacebar to stop the playback. It's going to have different levels of things you can affect to create. So you could create your progressions, you could create chords, you could turn those into arps, you can mirror and flip the MIDI data of those particular tools. You can adjust the levels or velocity in certain instruments, especially waveforms. There's different modifiers that affect the channel that you're on, especially the sampler channel. They have something called art, which I believe is articulation, which changes the legato and the note sizes. You have your groove templates and groove pools you can apply to the performance, and then fit, which is very important, restricts it to a scale for you so you don't have to figure out what notes go where or bother with scale highlighting at all. You can effectively start from scratch or drag and drop MIDI into it, and you work on existing score, aka piano roll data, and turn it into something totally else. So I want to show you that. So let's say if you had nothing, if you didn't have MIDI data here or you didn't record anything. Step one is to create the progression. So you notice there's one note. What you'll do is you load these different patterns to get different shapes. And in order to see them, what you'll have to do is adjust the time multiplier. So right here at 12 o'clock, it looks like there's 2 notes. So that'd be a 2-step progression. You go back further, now there's 3, now there's more. And when you see shapes like this, when it's increased, the chords are gonna behave like they're passing tones when you add the different or the additional keys to these. So progression is just single note at a time. What that also means is that progression is bass, because these are all the root notes of what your chords would be. So right there, you can start with a baseline shape, depending on what patterns you want, or what shapes you want to work with, and test that out on 808s or whatever, and then go to fit and put it in the scale you're working in. Put it in a Japanese scale, or you put it in a harmonic minor scale if you wish. And then go back and forth between the two to get something that you like. Really easy, very fundamental thing to work with if you don't know where to start when creating your own compositions. The next tab, of course, turns that into a chord progression. So that adds the complexity to it. And what happens is if you go back to the progression tab and increase it, you'll notice it's 1 chord, 3 chords, etc. A lot of that stuff starts sounding crazy at this speed. So I'm gonna play it for you. And then you keep changing the progressions to get different notes and different stacks. And then the time multiplier here divides up the chords as well. You do absolute pattern. I'm gonna turn group notes off. So that's really dope. And of course you could turn that into an ARP and go through the different ARP shapes. I believe I've talked about this before when I did the videos about the strum feature. ARP is really dope. You have different progressions and shapes you can run through, multiple octaves and things like that. This one is very experimental. Just turn the knobs until you get something that you like. It's really cool, especially if you're doing EDM and things like that. Mirror will flip the notes and give you different feelings, or we call them inversions basically. But these are really cool, especially since it flips horizontally. That is very interesting to experiment with, especially for change-ups. Levels, of course, are just the velocity curve. Articulation is the legato or the shape and length of the notes, almost like strum, or it could work very well with strum. In fact, when you're done with this, you can go back into tools and strum the chords if you didn't chop them up under ARP. And of course, you can uncheck anything to go back to the previous state. And then groove are just your groove pools. So it's really generic, but it's really fun if you're starting from scratch. But for me, I rarely start from scratch. So I'm bringing a known good chord progression here and let you guys hear this. In fact, I'm going to double that up. I'm going to clone it. I'm going to have that on 2 channels. So I'm going to have that on the chord channel, and then this one is going to be my riff channel. I'll mute this one for now. I'm going to go to the higher octave, my riff channel, go to Riff Machine, and then use Work on Existing Score. So what that means is it's not going to create a chord progression for me because I'm already giving it one. So now all these modifiers just modify the notes I created. So I can skip progression because I already have a progression. I can skip chord technically because these are chords. You would turn that on if you program bass first. But you can add on to the chords if you wish. My chords are already stacked. I don't need them stacked anymore. But what I like a lot is this arpeggiator. Because now I can go through these different shapes and these different types of patterns and just create some otherworldly stuff. And then of course you can move on the mirror. You can flip them if you need to. Or more than anything, you want to adjust the velocity levels. The seed is just a different presets of randomization it has for these curves. You just go through them and just check them out, flip them. And then adjust the scaling manually if you need to. So this would be really cool for like harps and guitars and plucks like that. A lot of your mono leads and things like that won't benefit from that. But this is really cool. It gives you a lot of options. And of course you use fit, and whatever your chords are in, you can put them in a new scale if you need to. I'm not going to use that. I'm just going to keep this arp the way it is and hit accept. And then what I want to do is select all of these. And you notice when group wasn't highlighted, I can move these freely one at a time. If you had group checked, when you move one note, it moves all of them. So I'm just checking these out, double checking to see if these overlap with my chord tones. And then these two I'll move down. Sounds way better. And then the rest you just add water. Just add your drums. And of course, if you ever wanted to add additional elements, you can. It's very effortless because you just go into piano roll and then check out the ghost channels. In this case, my bass or my 808s will just follow the downbeat. Really simple, like really simple. And I'll use portamento on those. I'll go back to my bus real quick. Let's take halftime off. Back on. But anyway, thank you guys for checking out the channel today. Again, I'm MGTheFuture. If you guys have any comments, questions, or concerns, let us know in the box below. If you're on social media, be sure to follow us. I'm at MGTheFuture on Twitter and Instagram. You can also follow at Maschine Masters. Until next time, guys, peace.